So how do you really support teachers, communities in making change? So we like to be really high touch. And what I mean by that is we support people at the point of instruction. And if we're working with leaders, like when they're in the buildings, when they're walking around into classrooms, engaging and interacting. And we also like to support them with thinking about where are their barriers? So we do a lot of deep transformational coaching work into what are your barriers? What are your fears? What's the emotional cycle that you're driving into when you think about this change? And what we often learn is that, as most people, right, you all have your own experience of being a student.
Go figure. Yeah.
And sometimes we get caught up in, well, this experience worked for me, right? Or maybe it was like a super positive, powerful experience for you, and you want to bring that to students, right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My name is Ron Camargo, and my guest here today is Dr. Stacey Schultz, who is the president at Educate LLC. Stacey, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't we start off this conversation that I'm sure will be all over the place because I have so many questions and so many curiosities about the business, with you telling everyone a little bit more about the company, what you guys are all about, who you help, and any other context you'd like to share.
Yeah, I would love to. So I want to start off by saying that Educate LLC was recently acquired by Learn LLC, but we have still within Learn, which is Change Force, and it is a change management company. We still have our education unit. So within our education unit, we service pre-K to 12 schools. We partner with districts, with principals and teachers to really support and improve instructional outcomes for students.
That's awesome. And I think a big part of how I want to tackle this first part of the conversation is sometimes there is such a huge hesitancy from schools and districts to adapt to new things and new solutions, especially now with technology and the way we've always done things and them not giving anyone the time of day. So talk to me a little bit more about working with those schools, working with districts, how you guys are able to help them with your solutions.
Yeah, so we're actually tech-enabled company. And when we first started, we really started about just getting tech into classrooms. And that's where Bob and Frank, the co-founders of Educate, really began of seeing, hey, there's a lot of technology in closets. How do we get them into the room? And then we expanded into, well, it's not just about getting the technology into the room because that's just a tool. But what else and how else can we really expand the learning experience for students and really meaningfully leverage tools to support that learning? And so we always like to say there's low tech and high tech and everything in between, and we need to be able to support students. But you asked about change. So how do you really support teachers, communities in making change? So we like to be really high touch. And what I mean by that is we support people at the point of instruction. And if we're working with leaders, like when they're in the buildings, when they're walking around into classrooms, engaging and interacting. And we also like to support them with thinking about where are their barriers. So we do a lot of deep transformational coaching work into what are your barriers? What are your fears? What's the emotional cycle that you're driving into when you think about this change? And what we often learn is that, as most people, right, you all have your own experience of being a student.
Figure. Yeah.
Right? And sometimes we get caught up in, well, this experience worked for me. Right. Or maybe it was like a super positive, powerful experience for you, and you want to bring that to students. Right. But the thinking, I mean, not the thinking, but the opportunity for everyone to do is yes, and yes, you have those experiences. Yes, they worked for you. But now, right, and you need to think about who are the students in front of you and what are the needs they have, not just for now, but as you go into the future, as you mentioned, with technology expanding and growing. And we have done a lot of work recently on AI pathways. We've developed our own AI tool to support teachers in classrooms.
That's interesting. And I would love to understand a little bit deeper. You mentioned having those conversations, really what they're going through, what they're feeling. Those conversations, are they with the students? Are they with the principals? Are they with the teachers? Are they with the superintendents? Talk to me a little bit more about that because I'm interested to hear how that vision encompasses what they're doing and what you guys help them with as well.
Yeah, so we talk mostly what we like to say is we support the adults in the building so
Mm,
that they feel nourished and therefore they can nourish others. It's kind of like that airplane model, right? Put the mask on yourself first
mm,
so that you can help others. And so we often find that in schools, in districts and buildings, both teachers and principals, that they're not getting a lot of nourishment, right?
mm,
And so we see this like coaching in these deep conversations as that space of nourishment and that safe space of exploration
mhm.
so that they can feel comfortable and ready to try things.
Yeah, because and correct me if I'm wrong here, but once they see how much you care, that trust and that relationship really gets built over time, and then they can feel they can open up to their vulnerabilities and what they're actually thinking, what their needs are, what their issues are, what their challenges that they wish can be solved, and then you guys can really brainstorm on how to make sure that your solutions really solve for the specific problems. That sounds
Yeah.
about right.
Yeah. Yeah. You get to really co create them, right? From a
Mm,
shared space.
yeah.
Whereas when you're going in and you're, a lot of companies and they often say a differentiator for us is that we're not coming in and saying this is the solution. We're saying there's a solution here that only we can find together.
I
And
like that a
by
lot.
starting there, right? And that's, Adrienne Marie Brown emergent strategy, right? This idea that there's a conversation that only we can have in the room, right? So this idea of
Mm,
it's emerging together. And so, of course, we as practitioners are, very up on what is most up to date, theoretically, research based, in the moment, right? Action, participatory
mhm,
action research. So sometimes we do that like live with people over time, right? But it really, so for us, like grounding ourselves on all of that scholarship, but then also being super practical because we've been in the spaces that
mhm.
all of the people we work with have been in.
Just simplify it, frictionless. How we've done it before, we can help you do it as well. It's just a matter of having that chat. Really, figure. I really like the words you use, co-create. I'm gonna steal that if you don't mind. So that's one. I'm interested to hear as well. Um, what have you learned going through this acquisition process? Because it's
Mm.
not something that every company goes through, not something that everybody can experience. But I am sure that there's many lessons, many experiences, many things that came from that entire process. So tell me a little bit more about that and some of the things you learned from it.
Oh, that is a big question. So I'll first tell you, sadly, the journey started when one of our co-founders passed.
Sorry to
And
hear that.
so, no, thank you. And of course, there was a grieving process then, right, for him, and also a noticing of it was time for the next iteration of the company.
Mm,
And so with uh, the co-founder's wife and the other co-founder, the three of us really kind of put our heads together about, well, what does that mean? And I was tasked with kind of figuring that out. So that was like, okay, what is this? And I was truly, I want to say, blessed because I people came out of the woodwork to help give guidance, have conversations with me,
mhm,
introduce me to people. And that ranged from my own mentors, my own network, from the mentors giving suggestions of who to connect with and connecting me with them, working with the Small Business Bureau, SCORE, getting my own free mentor to support on that. And he is so wonderful. And he worked on the Aetna CVS mergers, right? So, I mean, this is like, then also just having Frank's friends too also reached out and supported, gave support and introduced me to people, invited me to different places. It was so really truly a group effort of
mm,
what does it look like? What does it sound like? How do you get into the rooms you need to get into to
yeah.
explore even what are the best options for you? Right. So we needed to figure that out first. And I think that's the thing you need. Like, are you going to do you want to do a strategic acquisition? Do you want to do a merger? Do you want to do do you want angel investors to come in and be like a silent partner and new ownership capital? Do you want, I mean, there's so many different ways to go, honestly, that it is kind of overwhelming, especially if you've never done it. And what I will say, what I learned most is that if you are an owner of a company or you are running a company, be sure to say, what is the exit strategy? Set some things in place many years in advance. And it's okay if you haven't done that yet. Do pause whatever you're doing and think about what is the exit strategy here. Because that trying to do it in the moment and having some real like deadlines on it, right, creates a little bit of urgency that is hard, right? It's
Mhm.
hard. You wind up doing, I felt like I was doing multiple full-time jobs just in like that.
Can imagine.
Yeah. And then what I would say is, learning about the integration, right? So once it actually happens, that is challenging and emotional, right? For everyone. There's a
Yeah.
new and different kind of grief process that you experience as an organization, really. And then also some excitement because you're walking into a new opportunity and
Mhm.
new and maybe not new, but expanding identity. So like kind of
Mhm.
exploring that together as a team. I think one thing I learned as a leader is really keeping people up to date on those things as much as possible. You don't have to provide all the nitty-gritty details because some of that makes it messy,
Yeah.
actually, but being really clear about these are the directions we're exploring. Here's why we're choosing this one over that one. Here are the things we're considering. Here's and don't make promises that you can't keep, right? Because you don't necessarily know until it's all said and done what is possible. I think having different like meet and greet sessions between the new teams, I think all those things are just really important.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And that big highlight of plan your exit strategy or have a plan. Put something on paper, at least something on paper to make sure that you're thinking and have that vision of what's possible to come, even if it's not something top of mind.
Right. I mean, even if it's not the plan you go with, at least you're
Mhm.
beginning the exploration of the options.
Yeah. What
Because
does that look
yeah.
like? Oh, interesting. Sorry to interrupt you here, but like if you had to say, and not to dive too much deeper into this part here, I want to definitely talk about the growth in the company and some of the other things as well. But if you had to say maybe 2 to 3 things that you think are very actionable steps for people to that are listening to pencil down, what do you think those would be?
Okay, and what I want to say as a caveat, I am not an expert in M&A in any way, shape, or form.
Your
I
experience,
am
yeah.
a I had to experience this in a very urgent, immediate way and needed to dive deep. So from my limited experience,
Yeah.
but very real experience, what people should think about, you mean?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
so you mentioned, hey, have that exit strategy,
Yeah.
have that plan, get
Yeah.
something down on paper.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think the first thing is to talk to someone, right, who is an expert in M&A and get their like just learn about what are the different exit strategies, period, right? Like
Mhm.
of course there's sale, right? There is mergers, right? There are also employee ownership models
Mhm.
that you can move towards, right? And I'm sure there are a plethora of those, but I would say first, like really get educated on what are the options for your exit, and then asking, okay, what do I need to do to move towards one of those options? Right. So what is it about the structure? What things need to be in place? What, all those kinds of questions of like, well, what can I do now to start building towards that? Because there's very real things, especially if you want to do a sale. There are things that can just improve your position very strongly for a sale. And so some people also, I know, will just kind of have gone through it and they've had to pull back on the sale because they're like, oh, I didn't know. But they learned a lot in the process because they learned what other people deem as valuable, right? I think
Mhm.
the other thing to know is like, what is important in the market right now, like what are people looking towards, what are
Yeah.
people investing in, what are
Mhm.
asking those questions and
Yeah.
understanding it, because it also helps what kind of person you might need to look for, right? And that's the other piece that I didn't mention at all yet, but another really key thing is like how important to you is it that this company has a similar mission, vision,
Mhm.
culture, right? Like those pieces, while they're never going to be the same, they're going to be different. I think recognizing like what's important to you if you are going to go the sale route, and know that sooner than later. So when you're shopping around, you know what you're looking for, right? Because the idea is you'll make
Yeah.
a profile, right? And then you'll start looking out there, and there's all kinds of programs and resources and investment bankers and blah, 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 that are out there to
Yeah.
do it. Um, None of which we didn't use any in the end, but we learned about all of them
Mm.
and did meet
Oh,
with
that's
some
awesome.
people and got some demos of software and all
Yeah.
of that. And I think all those things are important. And I think people should think about, like, but if you're thinking about it when you're ready to sell,
Too late.
well, yeah, it's kind of too late, right? You can't set up for the best possible thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can't, as you said, work through it to make it as attractive of an option for the thing that you want, not the thing that you don't want.
Right.
That's really, really awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to also ask about, with an acquisition coming through, there's a lot of support that comes from the acquirer, right? Many things, many systems, processes, a billion things that get implemented to help the success of the company. But there's also, I would assume, some challenges that come alongside that as well. So I'd love for you to speak about that, and I'll frame it in a way that I've been asking a lot of people in the podcast as well, which is, what's the hardest part of growing the business? If you had a magic wand that you could just wave and solve one challenge, one problem, one obstacle, whatever you want to call it, that would allow you to hit the revenue targets, the client acquisition targets, the whatever targets, wave that wand. Out of a million priorities, you can solve one. That one thing that can lead to many, many great things to be achieved. What would that thing be?
Oh, that's such a good question.
That's why I ask it.
Yeah. I mean, the magic wand would be getting to the meetings
Mm,
for me. Like making it super easy to get to the meetings, because we have a super high success rate when we get to a meeting.
mm,
Getting to the meeting is our hardest part, and partially, and I'm sure lots of businesses experience this, but when your brand isn't large, you're not as like recognized. You also are competing always against like the bigger companies that continue to swallow up everything. And what I mean by that is they're like, oh, someone else is doing that. Now we're doing it too. Right. And it doesn't take them long to kind of do it and implement it. And I don't want to say that they do it very well. I don't think so. I think they just like to create that larger enterprise effect and impact. Like, we are your one-stop shop. Right.
mm,
And so we obviously, like, even though they're not our direct competitors, we compete with large companies in that way. That can also make steep, discounts, because they might, they're able to look at it on an enterprise level where we're not. And so I think those are some of our challenges. And if I were to wave a wand, I think once we're in the room with people and they're like, oh, right, and
yeah, for sure.
everybody remembers that mom and pop restaurant they went to and what an amazing experience it was over the Olive Garden,
Yeah,
right? Like, it's like,
yeah,
and or
yeah.
whatever chain restaurant that is out there.
Sure.
And I
Uh-huh.
don't mean any disrespect to the Olive Garden, but what I'm saying is, like, it's a different experience, right?
Yes, 100%. And it's interesting you mentioned that as well, because I think the target market that you guys have is such a notorious space for not giving anyone time of day.
Yeah.
It's like they are, hey, here's what we have going on, all those things. And actually, I might have mentioned to you in our first conversation, but one of our clients, they also sell into a similar space, and it's always the same issue. But once you show them the value, once you have that first conversation, then it's like
Yeah.
free reign. Like, they can see it, they have that experience, they have that memory. They'll remember you, not anyone else down the street, because, as you said, you're able to really differentiate yourselves in what you're doing and the value that you provide. So, yeah, that's awesome to hear. Thank you for sharing that. One final question that I have, and unless you have anything to add there,
No, no,
Stacey.
no, that's good.
Awesome. Yeah. A final question that I have here for you is actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had no idea who you were. So here's the question. This is an interesting one, because I think it can be very applicable to what you guys have going on as well. So if I butcher his question, please do not crucify me. So here it is. What are some of the regulations that you are ensuring your solutions meet? Hence, so, and then he added a little bit, what are some of the ones that you are focused on right now?
Regulations, you mean like?
Regulations, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, because we have an AI product, we are really big into security and privacy. So any of those regulations are something we're super, super focused on, right? So our product is going through the SOC 2 compliance, right? We drive it through the best secure platforms, so that is something we're uh, first and foremost being super mindful of, because our product takes in the PII data, the personalized data of students. Um, and of course the schools do their due diligence of letting parents know, letting parents opt in or out of that, all of those pieces, like, we think about thoroughly. So down to the school building, through like our product overall of how do we protect that? So that is a top regulation. But obviously, I mean, we work in schools, so there are many regulations
Yes.
that we are aware of and take very, very seriously. I mean, all of us were also educators, right? And so we were always following those regulations anyway. And when you're dealing with, you know, um, students and people, period, all of those things are very important.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I think it's something that can get overlooked. So I thank the last guest for asking that question, because it can be something that's often overlooked, especially with tech, AI. So many things are coming up. People, you would be surprised the amount of people just go on ChatGPT, put all of their information there, literally everything that they can. And I'm like, oh, that might not be the best idea ever. So it's great that you guys are of course on top of that as well. But Stacey, thank you so much for your time. This has been such an incredible chat. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you, and of course a little bit more about Educate LLC as well?
Yeah, so you can definitely check us out at educatellc.com. You can also check us out on changeforce.ai, the company that acquired us. You can also follow me or Educate on LinkedIn. I think Educate also has other social media platforms. I shouldn't say I think. I know Educate also has other platforms that they can be followed on. At current, I'm not. But on a personal note, you can actually also follow me on my own podcast, which is Educate US, and it's part of the Leon Media Network.
Amazing. I will leave everything down here in the description if you want to check that out. If you're still listening to this conversation and you want to hear more conversations like this, please hit the subscribe button, and I will see you on the next episode. Stacey, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was great being here.